Hello and welcome to the new moon reading for the new moon in Sagittarius happening this Wednesday, the 13th of December 2023. I am Makhosi Nomabutho and this is Sangoma Society, where we demystify the astral and the ancestral. We do these moon readings for the person who finds themselves influenced by the movements of the astral bodies and is looking for a way in which to live more harmoniously within themselves and within the reality they find themselves in as it unfolds under the movements of the moon and the sun and the stars, and how those things can bring up different things for us. This new moon in Sagittarius conjuncts with Mars in an aspect that can bring a sense of renewed hope at a time when we probably could use some. For me, the day of the new moon will mark a month since I buried my Congo. If you've been on this journey with us in any context, whether it's through coming into my practice for treatment or consultation, or interacting with our content on YouTube and even these podcasts, you've probably encountered Congo somewhere along the way. She was definitely a part of this community. She made her presence felt in our videos, and often by, making a lot of noise on occasion during these podcast recordings. And as this day today, the day of this recording, marks exactly a month since the day she passed, I'm going to let myself take heart in what it is that we do here. I think, let me express my own gratitude for the community that Itlozi has given me, especially ebantwaneni, ethongweni, and members of this community itself, for the support that you've given me and the grace over the last month, because this is the first podcast we're recording since this happened. And my gratitude to my ancestors for the work that they have given me. That enables me to process my grief. We do have grief work here, clearing into consciousnesses what we've recommended and what we were guided to bring forward during a time of global grief at the peak of the COVID crisis. And to know that that work works because it's done its work in me, and to know because it has given me the knowing, the understanding, and the experience of knowing that the dead do not die. I think let me dedicate this episode to Congo because she's been amazing. She has been incredible. Her transition has surprised me in every sense, of course, because her death came as a shock to begin with, but also because as much as we had our own way of speaking, and I always felt very much understood by her, and her response to my communication with her reflected a similar understanding. I think experiencing her in the realm where she is now is so different in how she articulates the things she articulates and how stern. I mean, Congo was always quite stern and had very firm boundaries, but it's lovely. It's lovely, and what a beautiful thing it is to know one's ancestors, and how grateful I am to my ancestors for how they've welcomed her and allowed her to continue to be with me in this way. I don't know what may have taken you by surprise this year. I don't know what may have been a grievance or a disappointment to you in this year. And I don't know what may be confusing you at this time. But I do know that this new moon is putting a bit of a spotlight on those areas. And one of those areas I want to start on is the area of love. Because what is it to live if not to have known love? We have Venus in Scorpio as one of the most notable transits of the past few weeks for me, and one that perhaps might be an underlying theme in the hedonism of the holiday season, but maybe we don't really give it the time that it needs. I think in this house we've paid quite a bit of attention to Venus over the course of this year. And like if you're in a committed relationship and stable family, Venus and Scorpio, you guys could probably be doing okay, you know. We're looking at renewal, renewal of beauty, falling back in love, you know, and even with oneself, you know, being able to fall back in love with yourself, being able to rebuild that inner sexuality that we know that Scorpio is so famous for, that je ne sais quoi. But there's that shadow aspect of Venus and Scorpio. Venus is happier in a mutable sign, and Scorpio is a fixed sign that has themes of jealousy and control, and with Mars there as Scorpio's ruler, we can sometimes experience Scorpio as aggressive, you know. And I mean, just guard against your urges, your carnal urges, in the sense of your sexuality right now, and how you express it, and how you might be vulnerable to expressing needs or frustrations, or trying to make sense of things through the expression of your sexuality right now. This house is a fairly liberal home. I mean, Venus in Scorpio is my natal chart placement. So, as the conduit, the facilitator for these messages, as a vessel, my own perspectives were always going to influence how I interpret and translate what I hear. So it's not about being a prude, but perhaps more about being shrewd, discerning. I know I'm South African and December ke December, and like you pick your morals back up at the end of January or whatever it is, but right now, the way things are set up, hot button triggers can be anywhere. You don't want to move in a way that just brings in undue vulnerability, because Scorpio's other ruler is Pluto, which is the god of death, which is, endings as renewal. And when we see that in a moment like this that represents so much renewal, if it is that you're spinning the block on the person that you spin the block with during the Venus retrograde, if like you're just in this loop with this person and you can't seem to get out of it, and you're finding yourself pulled back in right now, it's because there's something there that's unresolved. And Mars wants you to consider the conflict in that. And as Scorpio's ruler. And it's funny how this puts Venus and Mars into a very, symbiotic dance where you're having to look at both sides of the story. Like, why am I showing up the way that I'm showing up romantically? And what is it that I don't want as a theme of how I move? And where is it that I am trying to find agency and personal sovereignty, and using my sexuality as a vehicle for that, where the actual factual issue may be in an entirely different department of your life. May have to do with how you were raised, may have to do with socialization and how you experience your socialization, that the context of your socialization, where you're coming from, and the context of the socialization of the community that you find yourself in right now. Who you are and how you were raised may be clashing with or interacting with the context of the community that you've chosen to become a part of in your adulthood. It's a lunation, it's a transit, Venus and Scorpio, that really gives us a lens to gain perspective about how that can show up in how we present ourselves in the world, cosmetically speaking, how we defend ourselves in the world, how we experience ourselves in the context of community and love, which is where we see Venus. But this particular Venus transit, that's what it wants you to look at. So we've got Mars energy happening there, right? And more Mars energy happening with Sagittarius being conjunct Mars in Sagittarius right now. We've got this upcoming Mercury retrograde starting on Tuesday, the 12th, until January 1st. We've got plenty going on that could be tense, but right now, at this moment, it's going to give us a sense of get up and go, motivation. We can use this Mars energy, the aggression, to kick ourselves into gear and just get through the final stretch and give ourselves what we need in order to get through the holiday season. So, Sagittarius, the planet where the new moon is happening. The new moon means both the moon and the sun are in the same planet. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, the planet of abundance. So it stands to reason that typically the holiday season under capitalism often represents a time of excess. Normally we see that play out in aspects of consumerism. But the astrology leading up to this year holiday season signals tension, frustration, and the reality of events that we've had up to now mean that we can see the possibility of these themes being blown out of proportion over the course of the next few weeks if we don't take steps to give ourselves some room to diffuse the emotional charge of this moment and actually find out where it's coming from. Mercury is going to begin its retrograde in stubborn Capricorn, where we might find ourselves unwilling to consider other perspectives very easily when it comes to difficult conversations. And then on the 26th of December, the other side of Christmas, full moon time as well, Mercury is going to move out of Capricorn and backwards into Sagittarius, where it will conjunct with Mars as well, and together they will square Neptune in Pisces. So now you have this general miscommunication as a possibility with some very aggressive and highly charged energy leading up to Christmas. And then the day after Christmas, there is mounted potential for Mercury retrograde showing up as miscommunication, because when it conjuncts with Mars, it's going to be fueled with that aggression. And the miscommunication comes from that square with Neptune and Pisces, because you've got the trickster god, Neptune, right? So governing imagination, dreams, in Pisces, home ground, which is really deep emotion that can be very, very suppressed, very difficult to read. it's very easy in that kind of climate to find ourselves in confrontations that aren't even about what is coming up at a surface level. Which is to say that right now, with the new moon, well before the holidays really kick into gear, now is the time to go inward and give yourself the space to confront your triggers. Because if there was ever a time when your triggers could get the better of you, it's this December. Want to remind you that a trigger is a sign of where you need healing in the moment that you feel it. It's an opportunity to be directed in your healing. It's not a threat within itself. Just because somebody triggers you this holiday season doesn't make them the enemy. The trigger is the trigger. And what is being triggered is what you want to address. That's why we use clearing into consciousness to work through triggers. And that's kind of where we're going to be going in this house with this new moon. Because sometimes we say, this is a moon that wants us to focus on clearing. You know, with a new moon, we normally call in and manifest and set intentions. But sometimes we have a new moon that wants us to start by clearing out what no longer serves us before we begin to call in our desires. But more of that in a moment. I just want to come back to, you know, the holiday season in general. The thing that makes the holiday season a high tension time is that for the vast majority of us living in post-colonial global south or the west, the holiday season is a time that is fraught with memories. If you use the Gregorian calendar, then you know Christmas time is something that everybody marks. And capitalism surely marks it as well. So we've got memories anchored around this time of year. Memories that we may cherish and memories that we may try to forget or even suppress. And then you have the kind of astrology that we have right now. And it could just be an explosion. Because when tensions are high, and even if you're not given over to anything that's particularly hedonistic, there's still this possibility that you'll be so sure that you're feeling one thing, but the whole time it's something entirely different. Because underlying feelings and emotions can be triggered by the tension of both the holiday season and our current astrology. So, because we're always looking for ways in which to help our community navigate different transits, and because for me right now, Congo's passing and the reality that the oldest dog we have in this house, who's going to be 18 years if he makes it next year, is also been on end-of-life care for the majority of this year. I am not going to proceed with the intended December retreat. Instead, we are moving that to April next year, and the next retreat after that will be in September of next year. I still want to do the work though, and we've done this work remotely before. If you weren't able to book yourself off to Vipassana and find some silence to gather yourself, remember we spoke about that. This is the time of year you want a retreat. Well, we've got a retreat, and if you're enrolled to any of our programs, if you're one of the hundreds of students that we have, then this will be completely free for you. It's the Silver Linings Reset. We're going to start on Wednesday, the 13th, with clearing into consciousness. And for the 3 days that the moon is in Sagittarius, we're going to use it to put down what we don't want to carry. And then when the moon moves into Capricorn over the course of Saturday and Sunday, we're going to go into the Restful Reset itself, which is a vehicle that we use to quantify the time, where we've put our time. Because the thing with time is that we go, oh my God, where did the time go? When we're looking at the progress that we've made with our goals. And sometimes we can feel really frustrated. But the thing is, how we spend our time is going to be driven by the needs that we have subconsciously. And those needs require us to fulfill them. Whether or not we acknowledge that, the needs need to be fulfilled. And so what often happens is that we take our time to where it feels like those needs might be met, even if the behavior that we engage in to fulfill those needs is destructive. So when we do the work through the Restful Reset, we're actually giving ourselves the grace to acknowledge those needs and meet them in more constructive ways, and also to honor the sincerity of our desire to preserve ourselves under the torrent that is life under capitalism. Because if there's one thing that has changed this year, it's doing the Restful Reset. Of course, it's something that we introduced this year, so it's moved from a sort of informal exercise that I would do personally into this exercise that I've moved through with this group of really dedicated people who started with our Restful Reset in April of this year, and we've processed, with each solstice. So because the solstice is so close to Christmas, sometimes you want to spend that time with family, right? So we're going to just do that work now, and you're going to be allowed to join us. However, we're doing this like the old times. And if you know the old times, it's 4 a.m. every day for those 5 days. There will be no recordings of these sessions. They will be exclusively live, and debrief will be within the course platform itself.